G'day. Today I'm going to talk to you about my experience living in China during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, firstly, I'd like to point out a few facts about how China operates to give you an idea of this experience. Now, the government over there has the ultimate authority and works from the top down, national, provincial, local, and the local is answerable on the chain back up. So if they make mistakes, they get in the trouble. So they try not to make mistakes, and they try to take the thing that errs in caution the most. So that's something to remember when thinking about what happens later. They make decisions with haste, for better or worse. They don't have to consult with anybody. There's no elections over there. They don't have to worry about their electorate, their voting, who's going to vote for them, if not, whatever. Doesn't mean anything. They have total control. And in the cities, this is a big thing to know. In the cities, or basically anywhere in China, housing is a collection of communities. So if you have an apartment block, one building, is usually, not often, it's like that. It happened to me when I was in Shenzhen. I lived in an apartment block that was separate to everything else, but that was rare. Communities are made up of a number of buildings. They could be dozens, they could be up to 100 buildings, high rises, housing thousands, tens of thousands of people inside these communities, which are fully equipped with all the shops, everything you need. And you don't have to go anywhere. The people that live in those communities probably work in those communities, have their shops downstairs and sell their vegetables and their fruit and their meat and groceries and everything else. So yeah, that's something to remember later when you're thinking about the scale of what went on back in the lockdowns of 2022. So anyway, getting onto my story. So when I left in January 2019 for China, I went to a place called Liang, which is in Jiangsu province in the east of China, southeast, and it contains some very famous cities such as Nanjing and Suzhou, and also very close to Shanghai. And so I live it was quite a prosperous sort of province, that one of the largest provinces in China. And it was a small city that I lived in, 800,000 thereabouts. You could probably call it a country town. This is China after all. And for that year of 2019 was fantastic. I loved it. Comfortable, work was great, social life was great. Met some great people, both locals and foreigners. Us Laowai, that's what they call us, foreigners. And we had a good time. There was plenty of places to go and have fun, and it was comfortable. Saving money, the things were cheap, everything you could ask for. And it was a great year. So a year goes by. January 2020, I have 4 weeks off at the end of my 1-year contract, go home, and was due to come back in mid-February. And when I left China to head home, a friend of mine and we went to Thailand and had so I'd have a week holiday in Thailand. And when I got over there, I'd heard little things about the old virus starting. Didn't know anything about it. They hadn't even given it a name by this stage. And I just thought, it's just one of these things like the Zika virus or the SARS or the bird flu, or the never-ending names they give to these viruses that people get a bit scared about, and then after a few weeks it just dies off, and the only one still talking about it is the media to try and keep a bit of fear in you or whatever. So anyway, get back to Australia, and as soon as I get back, I get a message saying my flight back to China's cancelled, and then from then on things just started to drop off downhill. Not only did they cancel my flight, and give me a refund, but they cancelled their routes flying into China. I had to find a different way to get back to China, and finally I found that I got to Thailand and ended up going through Cambodia. By March, they were one of the only places that didn't have the 14-day quarantine, so I took advantage of that and thought, wow, this is great. I'll go there and miss out on that. And so 2 or 3 days spending in Phnom Penh, and I went back to China and sweating like a whore in church, of course, hoping that things weren't going to change while I was there. And they might have locked me up for me quarantine, whatever, but luckily I slipped through the raindrops in that one and got back to China. And as soon as I got to Nanjing, got held up there. They put me in the back of an ambulance and drove me back to Liang, which was 2 or 3 hours outside by road outside of Nanjing. And I've got to say that everyone was great. There was no heavy-handedness, none of that stuff. People are very friendly in China. East Asia's the same. Wherever you go, they're friendly people, helpful to foreigners, kind, generous, all those sorts of things. Just basic human attributes that are positive, and we all wish we had more of around the world. And that's what they're like. So anyway, I get put into a hotel at a tourist park in quarantine, and this tourist park there was, it was called the Bamboo Sea, and it was a big bamboo forest, and it had, special sort of tea leaves there that they grew, and all sorts of things. People come from everywhere as a tourist, and there's amusement parks. So the hotel accommodation was actually pretty good. So the only thing that wasn't much chop was the taka. The food was rank. It was see, in China you have either absolutely delicious food, or you have hideous tucker, and the stuff that they were serving up there was okay for the locals, but not for me. I was lucky enough to, because I had some friends in town, I'd give them a call and they'd go and do some shopping for me and bring some food over that I liked, and other things that keep me busy, such as my guitar. I was able to do a lot of practice with that, and just make the time pass as best as I could. And it worked out. It didn't fly by, that's for sure, but I made it through and got back out into the world and back to my apartment and pretty much back to normal. The only thing was that there was no work. They'd shut down the schools, shut down the many businesses, and I didn't start working until July of that year. And this was, so I was there from March till July, no work, no income, and just trying to do your best to stay busy and whatever, and do whatever you could. So anyway, we got to that time. Money was very, very low, and so I was very grateful by the time I got back to work. But the thing was, in that place, in that town, there was not one case of someone, having COVID, failing the PCR test, whatever. And so it was great. There was very few restrictions. I didn't need to wear a mask, none of that sort of stuff. And so life just went on as normal. And still, as far as I know, until the lockdown started that early 2022, I think up until then there was no cases of COVID or anything in that town, so that was all good. So, but what did happen, unfortunately, was the economic and financial burden hit everybody, as you could imagine, and the people I was working for, they had some exorbitant rent going on, and they were getting paid by the month, and like everybody else, and they weren't getting paid in those months that they weren't operating. So what happens? All of a sudden they can't pay their rent. And what else? They had to start laying people off, and they had to start to postpone paying wages, and that included me and most of the staff members there. So that was around about January, February of 2021. And so I was like, I went and had a yarn with the boss, and I said, I don't know if I can keep this up, because I was looking at moving on from that place anyway to, go find a better job. And so it worked out well. I decided that I wasn't going to stay in a place that had freezing cold winters. Not for me. I'm from Australia. We don't have that sort of stuff over here unless you live down in Melbourne or Tasmania, somewhere like that. So I decided that somewhere down the south coast was good for me, so I ended up getting a job in Shenzhen. And a month later, March, April, I moved down to Shenzhen. Now, Shenzhen, absolute culture shock. Interesting place. Now, Shenzhen, everyone loves a visit down there. It's, if you don't know, it's a city that's right down the south of Guangdong province, and it borders on Hong Kong. So you've got Hong Kong, the Bay, Shenzhen, but unfortunately I could never make it to Hong Kong because why? The COVID restrictions had shut down the rail that goes to Hong Kong, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, funny that they think Hong Kong's part of China, but you're not allowed to go there. Anyway, I got there. I found that this was a city that I've gone from 800,000 people to pushing 20 million in Shenzhen, and people just go there to work. That's all they do. They work. They're called 996s, as they are in some other parts of China, which means they work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Some of them work 7. I was sort of dating this girl for a little while there, and she called herself a 10-10-7, working 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, and she had like 1 day off a month. It's incredible. And you could tell that didn't really work out too well. But anyway, it was it started off okay, like things were all right. I enjoyed the weather, I enjoyed the job, I liked the people there. Didn't have much of a social life at work because everyone that worked there was changing. They would have their days off when I was working and vice versa, so we'd be changing our shifts and sort of not really getting to socialise outside of work. But anyway, and during that year they were very, the locals were all worried about the COVID, so everyone's wearing a mask wherever you go, inside shopping centres, all that sort of stuff, which was, seemed to be a lot of places in the world were like that, but they were wearing masks outside all the time, everybody, and I never did. Like, I only wore a mask when I really, really had to, like going inside a shopping centre. I didn't see the point. Anyway, so it was very hard to make friends outside of work there. People were very suspicious and paranoid, and especially if you're a foreigner, they were told by the government that foreigners were the ones who brought the COVID in to China, where it was apparently it started in Wuhan or wherever. But it was surreal, very strange. So it was quite a lonely existence in Shenzhen for me. Like, all I did was work and hang out at home and go and do things by myself. Go to a coffee shop a lot and talk to people there, but that's about it. And so by the end of 2021, I ended up getting a torn calf muscle, like really bad one, and I was out of work from October that year for a couple of months because in my job you had to be active and you had to do things, and all I could do was sit on my bum and just look around and say things and bark orders or whatever. So that was no good, so I couldn't really work much. And then come December, I went for a checkup about my leg, and they gave me an ultrasound and reckoned that I had a big blood clot in my leg, and they put me straight into hospital. So it's because they thought I'd get a pulmonary embolism, and I could die. So they put me in the hospital for a week, and then it turned out that wasn't true. And the big head honcho doctor come and he just said, you can go, you don't need to be here. So that was another wasteful week. And then another week after that, which was just after Christmas, got the new year, and they shut down everything again as from the first week of January. So I never, from the first week of January, never worked in China again. Actually, basically since October, I hardly worked. So there I was again, lost all of my money, spending money all the time on rent and everything else, not earning an income. Anyway, that's beside the point. So as we were going through early 2022, and you started hearing about COVID coming into or becoming prominent, prevalent, whatever, in China again, and foreigners being blamed, and people coming back from other places into China being blamed, and then their zero COVID policy, which had seemed to have worked quite well because they stopped people from coming in. They even stopped all foreigners from coming in, and they even stopped people with resident permits from coming in. Happened to a friend of mine the day that he was about to come back to China after going on his little holiday back home. They cancelled his visa to come back in, and he was stuck back in Australia for months and months, and he couldn't work. Well, he could work back home, but he had his whole life. He was, he had his girlfriend, he was living with her and all that sort of stuff. His whole life was in China, and that just the day before he was supposed to come back, and that was, devastating for him. So that's the sort of thing that can happen again, like under no warning. So anyway, in that 2022, you'd go out and all of a sudden you'd see massive block, not fences, but walls just set up around whole communities. And like I said before, some of these communities are massive. You're talking tens of thousands of people living there, and they would just put this stuff up overnight because there was a contact trace, or someone may have COVID or tested positive in a PCR test or whatever, and then bang, 14 days, and then every 3 days you had to get another test, and then they keep doing that. And if every single of these tens of thousands of people was found to be PCR negative, then no worries, they could open up again. And let's look at it that these communities were full of shops, services, everything that people needed in general, goods and services, were all inside these communities, and they were all shut down too. The people that worked there, locked in their apartments. They weren't even able to get food, supplies, medicine, anything themselves. You weren't allowed to go out for any time at all. You were locked inside your apartment 24/7. Weren't allowed to go out and get some supplies. It's just not on. And this is the extent of what things were like. And then it kept happening, dominoes just all around me. The next one, and me living in a small one apartment block, and that was it. I felt lucky because there was less people, obviously, in that apartment block compared to a massive community that were had the chance of getting COVID or testing positive. So it wasn't too bad. So yeah, after seeing all these communities going down and whatever, it started to shock me. I started to think, wow, this is how China's going to be. This is everywhere's going to happen. So I spoke to my my boss, who was kind of trying to string me along, saying, no, next week it'll start up, but only because they're getting strung along by the authorities, saying, yeah, we're going to look at it the next week, and then next week would come, nothing had happened next week, So they were saying the same information to me, and I just turned around and said, look, I'm not hanging around to do this anymore. I'm just getting out of here because this isn't going to happen. So you should go and find yourself other people that are willing to do this, and and get them to work for you when you're ready. So that was that. I booked a ticket to go home, and during that time it was just like a big mess. I was getting more angered by the the increase in authority taken by, like, they have these security people there. They're not really security employees. They're community members who just take it upon themselves to throw on a uniform and say, yeah, we're in charge around here. And you get these, I can't remember the name of them, they got a certain name, and they're not overly liked by the people, but there'd be things like I'd have to go into the big community to dump my rubbish into their dumpster, and they would try to stop me because I'm not wearing my mask, and even though there was no rule to say that you had to wear a mask, they'd still try and do it, and they'd pull the buttons on you and everything. And I almost got into a couple of blues with people and stuff. I was getting angrier by the day. I just I was getting very, very anxious and stuff like that. And it was taking its toll big time every day, because you were sitting there, no friends, no family, no social life, just sitting in my apartment every day, and wasn't even locked down, but there was nothing to do. You couldn't go on the trains, the buses, or any sort of transport at all unless you had your app with your green light that said that for the next 48 hours you're okay with your PCR test, because you had to go and get a PCR test every 3 days. You had to go and line up at this community PCR testing place where there was tens of thousands of people also lining up to do it, and you were wasting your whole day doing that every 3 days. It was insane, and as a foreigner it was even harder because no one knew how to process you. Like, as a local Chinese, you just show your ID card and no worries, you go through. But for me it was a big problem, and it always took someone a half an hour to work things out, how to get you processed. It was insane. It was wild. So anyway, yeah, you do deal with that, and it was just an absolute mess. It was totally unnecessary, but anyway, that's how they ran things. And so yeah, I booked a ticket to go home. The day before, I was going to leave to go down to the other end of town, stay in a hotel the next night, and then the day after I was going to fly out of Hong Kong, because what you could do in Shenzhen is get a ferry from Shenzhen straight to Hong Kong Airport, which isn't part of Greater Hong Kong, so you could avoid all the stuff, any issues that you would have. And of course it was cheap to fly out of Hong Kong, whereas in Shenzhen and China at that time it was expensive, almost unaffordable. So the day before I was about to head down to the other end of town, close to the ferry there, I came back from somewhere, being out, and there was the testing people, and they tested me when they come back, and I'm saying, what's going on here? And they said, we've got a possible contact of someone in your apartment, so we need to check everyone. No one's allowed to go inside until this is all done, and we get all the negative results, and if everyone's negative in the building, then we can all go back in. So hours and hours went by. It was midnight or something like that before you could actually go back in the building, but everyone tested negative, and I was like, yeah, this is it. There's no way I'm going to be hanging around here tomorrow. So I the next morning I just packed up my stuff, went and squared up downstairs and shot through, went all the way down to the other end of town, left basically 90% of my stuff in that apartment. They cleaned it all up and whatever, but I had a lot of stuff, half my clothes, everything. I just ended up taking one bag with me because I just wanted to get the hell out of here. I didn't care. Just take the essentials and go. It felt like the great escape to me. Next day I went down to the ferry terminal, and they said, which is a big fault of mine, they said, no, the airline, it was some Thai airline, they don't have an agreement with us where you can get on the ferry and go to Hong Kong. So, oh, Jesus. So, okay, I didn't realise that. So, there was only certain airlines that they did it with. So they said, all you can do is go down to where they cross into Hong Kong, get across there and get a taxi over to down to the airport, go that way. So anyway, what happens, I get down there, line up, get through, get just to where we're about to cross into Hong Kong, and they said, if you come into Hong Kong, we're going to put you in quarantine for 14 days. So I'm just like, you imagine I just went off and just went, oh, bugger this. This to put it very lightly. I went back to the hotel, booked another night. So I've lost all that, lost that whole booking for a flight. So I had to book another one for the next day. So I ended up booking with Singapore Airlines or whatever. And so the next day, I go down there because I knew that they had the ferry thing going on. So I went down there, and they said, "Okay, where's your thing to say you're COVID negative and whatever they called it back then." Pulled out my phone and said, "Here it is. I did it. Yeah, I did it the day before. There's my 48 hours from my PCR test saying I'm negative." And they said, "No, that's not what we want." And I'm like, "What do you mean? What else is there?" "Oh, but you have to get this official thing from the government." "But this is the government. Who else does these tests?" No, you have to go to this place." "Where's the place?" "Oh, you'll have to find out yourself." And you think that didn't cause a ruckus. Anyway, don't know how I didn't get arrested. Anyway, so I went back, booked in another hotel night, lost that flight. I was able to rebook it for the next day, cost me some more money, whatever. Went to the reception, they told me, "Oh, you've got to go to this place, this is where you go." Okay, so I went down there, got the thing done. It was no different to anywhere else that you line up to get one. It was just that it was in a small place. The only difference was, instead of it going onto your phone, you go back there and you get given the code, you type it in, and then it prints out your result. So the next day, before I had to go to the ferry terminal, go back there, grab my printout, negative. Okay, cool. Finally, get there, and after the few days I had, I was anxious as hell. I was tired. All the emotions were coming through. I was just I was wrecked, and I was waiting in line. The lady was trying to help me with my ticket and get me through to the ferry terminal, which was all good. And we were having a good old time, laugh. I was starting to feel a bit more relieved. So anyway, this guy walks past, he says g'day to me, or hello, just another foreigner. He says, "How you going?" And I said, "Oh, mate, geez, I can't wait to get out of this place." And as soon as I said that, the woman stands up and goes, "Don't you talk about China like that. This is the place and she just went, "Let me have it." And I was just stood back, and all the Chinese are starting to look at me going, "What's this guy done? What's he doing? Do we have to get him?" And I'm just like, "Oh, Jesus." And I just said, "Look, love, nothing about China. It's about the experience I've had in the last few days, or last months, really. This is insane. Like, I'm just expressing something. I can't express anything." And she goes, "Oh, okay, look, just know I'm trying to help you, and those sort of things aren't appreciated." And I said, "I'm not having a go at you. I'm not having a go at China. I'm just can't wait to get on that ferry and get over there and start going home, because this stuff is driving me mad." That's all. So anyway, okay, we made up. We become good mates again, and then she let me through, and then finally got on that ferry, got over to Hong Kong, get over there. Everything in the airport shut, everything except the gate where you fly out from. And so did that. It was Singapore, I think. Singapore Airlines. At least when you get to Singapore, you could stay in transit back to Australia. And after all that stuff about having your COVID negative ticket and all that sort of stuff, get back to Australia. And what happens? I walk straight through. Didn't even want to look at it and ask me if anything about it. I just said, "Oh, welcome to Australia, sir. Come back in." That was it. So I lost all that time, couple of days, because of all of that, because they wanted me to go and get this thing, which the Aussies didn't even care about. And for somewhere that was such a lockdown and COVID protocol crazy as in Australia, they didn't even ask me for that. I just couldn't believe it. But anyway, that was that. And ever since, I've been trying to get over that moment. And, I've got to say, I did feel a little bit traumatised from that experience over those last few months. And, I did have trouble adjusting when I got back to Australia, and I think now the last year or so things have changed, and I've found a lot of peace and a lot of tranquility, and just things in my life are going way better, and that's from consciously working on it. So hopefully I can talk to you about that experience and other things in the future, in future videos, and I'm excited to do that. So if you're still here, thanks for listening to me, and I look forward to having a chat with you soon. See you later.